Hi, Pastor. My name is Brian Wangler, and I'm one of the pastors here on the Chicago Central District. And I was asked by district leadership to create a video. It's about 13 minutes long. It was a form of an orientation for church board members to kind of take all of their responsibilities and give them five important responsibilities that we believe if they honor these five, that we're going to have a good relationship with our boards and they're going to be able to effectively lead, and the experience for them is going to wind up being a positive one. And so I'd encourage you to watch that prior to watching this video, but I wanted to say a few words to you kind of to accompany what I said to the members of the church board on the other video. We talk about in that video how in Acts chapter 6 you have kind of the creation of the first church board in the New Testament, where things have happened, there's positive movement going on, there's growth, and the apostles begin to be overwhelmed with the day-to-day routines. And so they, in Acts 6, it says that they appointed 7 men or 7 people who would step into leadership. And there were 3 things that they wanted to be common among those leaders. One, they wanted to be people of good reputation who were respected in the local body. 2, they wanted to be full of the Spirit and full of wisdom. And that has been a check for me over the years, always to remember that the people I'm leading who I expect to fulfill their role are also counting on me. And I've never been in the ministry too long, never been a believer, never grown so far that I don't need to check my levels once in a while. I need to remember that my reputation in the community is important. And the way I behave in the church matters, but it also matters how I behave in the community, right? And so one of the things in leading a board is to remember that your reputation really does matter. And you need to check that once in a while and make sure that it's consistent. And then the idea of being full of the Spirit. I stopped dreading church board meetings a long time ago when I had a mentor, Dr. Crawford Howe, who said, Brian, you've got to turn over the fact the Lord is going to bring a church board around you. We're not going to manipulate it. We'll guide the process, but we're not going to manipulate it. And that's God's issue. And then when he gives you this church board, you will work with them. And so I tried to view church board meetings as a time when I would try to be ready in my own spirit and in my own heart. So I didn't go in with an attitude, and I didn't always do it well. But I've tried to have a moment with the Lord in anticipation of a meeting, because we really do need the Spirit's guidance, and then full of wisdom. And I've always been checked to be a continual student. What am I learning about leadership? What am I learning about developing an organization? Leading a church board is an art. And I'm not an artist, but I'm trying. And I would encourage you to remember those 3 things. Guard your reputation. And check your levels, in terms of your spiritual level, and then continue to be a learner, right, as you lead an organization, because that church board meeting is something that the Lord will develop you through, and that He can help you to do in an effective way. And then we talked to them about the 5 primary responsibilities of the church board. The first one was that the church board members are the spiritual leaders of the local church. And I'm not going to repeat everything that I said to them. And so I'll just say this to you. We really do need to view our church board members that way. Regardless of where they are, God is doing something in them. If we believe in this process, and I do, imperfect though it is, I think the Lord uses it to bring people around us. Lead them spiritually. If they're spiritual leaders, respect them that way. There needs to be a part of your board meeting where you're hearing from God. One of the tools that I use, and you don't need to use this one, you'll find a better one, but one of the tools that helped me is I simply begin every meeting, staff, board, ministry team, with the question, what has the Lord been saying to you? I come expecting them to have spent time with the Lord and to have spent time with the Lord about that meeting myself. But give God the opportunity to speak into that meeting and kind of respect that environment. Acknowledge the fact that Jesus isn't, we don't just talk to Him before the meeting and after the meeting. He's in the meeting, and allow Him to speak to you during that time. There's times when we live in such a great day of technology. I was in a meeting with some other pastors, and there was an individual who gave a devotional to this community meeting I was in, and I'm like, wow. And I had a board meeting that night, and so I called this guy and I said, hey, would you zoom in and just share what you shared? It was fresh and exciting, and that's become a habit. I'm beginning to reach out, but we take that part of the meeting very, very seriously. Now we have business to do, right? But man, that's an important part of the meeting for people to be able to share what God may be saying to them, and to teach them as a leader how they hear from God. If they're struggling with their quiet time, you can begin to disciple them in it a little bit later on. So that's the first thing, the spiritual leadership responsibility. The second one has to do that the church board members are tasked, along with pastor and staff, to identify barriers to growth and remove them. We used to kind of think that church growth was about us doing stuff. But what we've really learned is that healthy organisms grow, and healthy organisms reach out, and healthy churches reach out, and healthy churches invite. And so our focus on Chicago Central District is one of church health, and there's a ton of tools available through the district office, church health surveys, those kinds of things. But focus on that church health, because it will make a difference, and it becomes, instead of us trying to do something on our own, it really does, as Dr. McCain says in his book, it really does call us in to getting the soil ready and right. So speak to those issues of health. And the third responsibility that we talk to the board about is that they are spiritual ambassadors for the mission and vision of the church. It's a beautiful thing when your board members are ambassadors, when they're answering questions out there, and they're interacting, and they're talking mission and vision, and that saves conversation, and the hallway conversations go differently, right? There's a lot of things that are impacted. But if you want them to be spiritual ambassadors, and we challenge them to be that, but if you want them to be, there's a few things that we need to be sure we do. We need to plan our board meetings well. We really do need to recognize that bad things happen after about 90 minutes in a board meeting. People are tired. They've had a full day already. And we really need to think through and plan our board meetings well. Have an agenda. Follow the agenda. If you want them to be ambassadors, we need to make sure that they understand not just the what we're doing, but the why of what we're doing. So make sure that you're getting feedback from them. Make sure that you're hearing pushback. Matter of fact, there's times in a board meeting when if there's no pushback to the idea or the decision that we're making, sometimes I'll become that. I'll go, okay, let me push back on this, or I'll ask the board, what are we missing here? What's the other side? I mean, you really need to probe for those other opinions and those other thoughts, because just because everybody nods their head and votes yes doesn't mean you have unity. I really do try to practice everybody speaks once before anybody speaks twice. That's a helpful tool in a church board meeting. Listen to what they're saying. Don't interrupt them because the position they're taking is maybe contrary to the way you'd like something to go. You got to be able to facilitate that process, hear them out, make sure that everybody's heard, and then guide toward a decision. And if I don't feel unity in the room, we can wait on this, even if it's something I really didn't want to wait on, right? Because the relationships in the room are more important than the decision that you're making. You can win a battle over a decision and lose credibility with your board. And when you lose that credibility, you lose the ability to lead them. And so there's lots of conversations along these lines that are really, really important. Honor confidentiality. We expect the board to. So don't, if you want them to be ambassadors, give them talking points and honor the confidentiality. So when we talk about them being ambassadors, I talk about how once a decision is made, it's all of our decision, and we honor that. And as an ambassador, I don't go out and go, well, that's what they decided, but here's what I really want to do. As true as that is for board members, it's true for me as a pastor. I should never go out and say, well, here's what I wanted to do, but my board, right? Don't do that. You're dishonoring them, and you're going to lose the ability to lead them. If you be an ambassador. and say, yeah, the board, we thought we might go this way, but the board decided a different way, and I fully support that. And we're going to come back around. We'll continue to talk about these things. So make sure that you are, make sure that you're doing that. It's a really, really important part. But I'll tell you, it's a beautiful thing when your church board members become ambassadors. And I've seen it happen. I've seen people headed toward me after a service with something that I had said or something I introduced, and I could tell, oh, here they come. And I've seen the board members step in front, have a conversation. Beautiful thing, but it takes an investment on your part if you want them to be ambassadors. One of the things, if you want your board to be ambassadors, is surprises need to be rare. Don't spring a major decision on them that you've been thinking about for 6 months, and they walk into a board meeting in 15 minutes, you want them to vote on it. And again, that takes organization. But I'd encourage you to do that because, it's a beautiful thing when they are ambassadors. And then the fourth responsibility is that the church board provides care for pastor and staff. And the way that we reciprocate that is that we care for our board. We pray for them every day. We're asking God to bless. We're kind of watching their lives, and we're trying to step in moments when there's difficulty. And if the only time I'm contacting my board is when I need something, that's a bad precedent to set. Here's some ways that you can care for your pastor or for your church board. Use their time wisely. I just talked about the organization of the meeting. Honor their decisions. Reach out to them when you're not asking them to do something. Thank them appropriately. Anytime credit starts to come your way, shift it to the local leadership team of your church board. Brag on your church board, because I'm going to tell you, they're in a difficult place. It's a hard thing. When we talk about honoring their time, one of the things that one of my mentors challenged me to do the first 2 years I was at a church, he said, I would challenge you the first 2 years that the morning after a church board meeting, you set your alarm and wake up and start working whenever the person on your board who has to get up the earliest that day does it. He said, you will change the length of your meetings when you know you have to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock the next morning like some of your board members do. This is all care issues. This is all us honoring them with our time. And so, and then execute. If the board makes a decision, follow through on what's happening. Those are care issues for your local church board. And then the fifth component of the responsibility of a church board is to be the formal board of directors for the local church. And to that, I say, know your manual. The church manual in Church Nazarene is a beautiful thing. It is, everything in there is there for a reason. It's there to help us. And so when we talk about the formal responsibilities, get your audits done on time. Get your reports into the district on time. Make sure that you're following protocol. If you have a question, call and talk to Scott. Talk to Dr. McCain. And find out what is supposed to be done, because you're leading a nonprofit. And as a leader of a nonprofit, it's not just about me and the nonprofit. When I fail to file a report with the state and maybe tax exempt status can come up or whatever, I'm not just putting myself at risk or even a local church. I'm putting the district advisory board, and a denomination at risk. So don't ever forget, this is a board, and we need to follow those mandates of our church manner. It's there to help. Over the years, I've had some great boards, and I've made a lot of mistakes. And I remember one time at one of the churches I pastored, not the one you're thinking of, but a different one, we had a board member who was probably too new of a Christian to actually do it, but he got elected, as sometimes happens. And he was a great guy, and he loved the Lord, and he actually had business acumen that was helpful, but he also had kind of a bleeding heart. And my friend, I'm going to call him Bob, it wasn't his name, but my friend Bob, he was always worried about what's somebody thinking, who are we going to hurt? Boy, I don't know if we should do this. And it would wear on the church board, other church board members, and sometimes it would wear on me. And I always thought, man, he's wired so differently, but he'd keep getting elected. And then I hit a bump in the road as a leader. There came a time when I really thought that my tenure at that church was over, and I was angry. And I went to a board meeting with the intent of resigning. I didn't have anywhere to go. I did, but I just felt like, you know, and I walked in the room and everybody was there, and I started to read the letter that I wrote. And when I looked at the back of the room, my friend Bob the board knew, man, Pastor Brian is not in a good mood. This is not like him. And I looked at the back of the room, and a tear was falling down his cheek. And I stopped reading the letter. And I said, folks, I'm sorry. I'm tired. And I shouldn't have probably even called you here tonight. Is it okay if we pray and then I get rested and then we'll talk? And the board instantly said, Pastor, of course, it's okay. That individual saved my ministry. That was a board member. And it wasn't one who I agreed with often. But God had put them there, I believe, by divine appointment. And if we will honor that, God will use it. God bless you, man. Remember, you too, Pastor. You are where you are by divine appointment. And you're doing better than you think you are. God bless you.